We're going to get started, so if you would please rise for the indication and Pledge of Allegiance.
We have anybody here that's not staff? Everybody's staff here tonight, isn't it? All right. Dear Lord, we're so thankful for the opportunity to come together to do our budget. I pray for every person in this room, because us as the staff and the commission work very diligently and very hard to oversee the things that have been trusted to our care. And I pray for your guidance and your wisdom upon each of us tonight as we make decisions that will benefit us not only now but in the future. Of course, we always pray for our military and our servicemen and women, those who keep us safe here at home. Watch over us, keep your hands of protection around us. One and all we ask and pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are here to start the budget process tonight. And Al, I guess you're going to be the moderator.
Same old, same old.
Before we get started, I do have a statement to make about the budget and this year. 3 years ago, I requested that the city reinstate their college education program so that our staff could approve, and I think Human Resources probably could manage this, could approve what courses are being taken and reimburse our employees for courses they take related to their work and to a related program. So I have not seen anything in the past 3 years, and I went through the book today and still do not see this being issued. Now, I think as a city, we have enough money to do this. The employees since 2008 gave up a lot, including year after year of not having any increase in salary because of the economic standing. I would like to see this reinstated this year. I'm leaving next year, and I don't want to go out and not have this program back in place. Thank you.
Understood. And I assume that was for the commission.
That was for the commission.
I am directed, as the commission does, to get your 100 grand.
Yes.
You need 3 votes.
Okay.
So talk about how we can get those things tonight, Commissioner.
Thank you.
So with that being said, any other statements from the commission before we get started? So the process tonight is pretty much as it's been for the past, I guess, 6 years now. Is this budget number 6? Maybe even 7. I lose track. But in any case, generally tonight we'll focus on the general fund. Essentially, I think the general fund is in pretty good shape. It's not crazy great. It's not horrible bad. I think there's some few flexible pieces in there. It's showing some slow and steady growth, which is good. So tonight we'll focus on the general fund. There's 2 or 3 big topics that I wanted to bring your attention to, and then break it down into the departmental views. Then on Thursday, I think we catch a couple of the other funds and the enterprise funds, and some capital projects. There'll be some mention of the capital projects tonight, which, by the way, if you're looking for a college money, is the place you may want to look there. So then we'll move on to the other stuff. And we scheduled 4 sessions. I think we scheduled 3. We've got time to do more. We've been scheduled 4. We've done it in 3. So without further ado, I'll zoom through the highlights. And I think you'll see in the presentation where it's appropriate to stop and interrupt and give your input as we move forward. So essentially the way the budget shakes down in the general fund for the big things is throughout the city we did increase the fleet lease to start reimbursing the fleet fund to continue equipment replacement. We had, when we reduced the fleet lease way back when, we came up with an annual number, which is 100%. We operated at 50% of that number for several years, then we moved to 75%. And then we've been kind of kicking the can down the road, but again, we're recommending a 75% or 25% increase, which adds about $575,000 to the general fund costs. when we do the fleet budget, we'll show you that chart for more detail on how we justified that. The proposed ad valorem rate is the same rate, 4.2678 mils. That is a slight tax increase. We'll talk about that. Fire assessment fees, you did that resolution last night, remain the same. Health insurance, we increased last year for employees and the retirees. We're proposing that that remains the same. And then salaries and wages, I want to break that a little bit down because there's some changes there. But essentially 3% increase. We went with, again, the merit or step with it. Plan increase. So essentially the way we work those together is everybody's eligible for the 3% step increase unless you don't get a satisfactory on your personnel evaluation. If you don't get a satisfactory on the personnel evaluation, you don't receive the merit. By and large, I would say most of the employees did receive the step. There were a few, however, that did not. The top ranges stay the same when we do the pay grades. If you are at the top, again, we're recommending a 3% bonus. The non-union bottom wages increased by 3%, so we continue to hire a little bit higher each year and stay competitive. But pursuant to the CBAs, the IFF and the PBA, the bottom ranges on their entry levels don't increase. And then the budget also has a 3% merit increase for the city manager. On positions, we did modify the general fund by about 4 positions. We're recommending adding a utility billing supervisor, 2 public works positions for facilities and grounds maintenance, and 1 maintenance worker for recreation. The chief, fire chief did recommend 3 firefighters. Technically, they're not in the budget, but they are. In a few minutes, I'll break that down a little bit, but the cost for that is $169,739. One of the areas that we did change beyond the 3% or recommending a change is police dispatcher pay. For the past 2 years now, 3 years maybe, we have really had trouble retaining our dispatchers. We have 15 program positions. We have 7 of them open. We really think that that's due to pay and call volume. So we did a salary survey, which is down here on the bottom. Leesburg is here at the bottom at about $13.35 for entry-level range versus, say, the peak at Apopka. Our big competitor is Sumter County. I think Chief Hicks would agree. So our recommendation is, in addition to the 3% raise, there's 3 positions we want to address. Is the emergency service dispatcher 1, which is a range 117. We want to increase that to a 119. That's essentially about a $2.25 raise per hour. The EST2, we're keeping about the same, but we're not going to fill those positions to help fund this increase for now. The ESD3, we would increase from 120 to 122, from about 1801 to about 1909, and then the communications manager remains at a 124, and that's a 3% increase. The thing with this is, it's not a whole lot of money to get this fixed. We were only talking about an additional $25,000. It's not in your budget book. It needs to get weaved in there. If you approve it, of course. So let me jump over and take a look at ad valorem changes and why we recommended the 4.6. So this was kind of a fun new little chart this year, and I wanted to break down kind of where we're at with growth, what citywide, how that affects the general fund, and then your CRAs, and then just kind of give you a return on investment on the CRAs. So essentially citywide, the city's total taxable value is about $1.4 billion. That's an increase of almost $90 million for a change of about 6.8%. In money, that's about $326,000. By the way, if you stay with rollback, which would not be your tax increase, you go from a 4.2678 mils to 4.0623 mils. If you make this change, that decreases your budget by $277,000. So if you go with the same, it's a tax increase because it's that 6% growth. So how does this break down? The general fund obviously is the lion's share. The general fund taxable value is about 1.26, or let's call that 1.27 billion. That's an increase of 70 million, or an overall almost 6% increase, about $250,000 of growth. The Greater Leesburg CRA really kind of just stays steady. Its value is about 44.5 million. It increased about 100 grand. That's not much of an increase as percentages all. In terms of dollars, it's $400. Carver is actually doing a little bit better. Its value is almost 32 million, up about almost 2 million. That's about a 6.5% change, and that equals about $7,800 in CRA money. But the big surprise here, and the big payoff, when we redid this base year, that's really helped the 441.27 CRA start accumulate money. As we get into the CRA, we're going to say keep this money in the bank to help you pay off that bond note. We'll get into that, I think, tomorrow or the next meeting. But that value is the CRA. 441.27 CRA is about almost 75 million now, an increase this year of 17 million, and that's an increase of almost 30%. I think that's really reflective of a lot of the building that's going on out on 441, a little bit on 27. So that's a real good sign. So that's a net change of about almost 70 grand that goes into that pot. So overall, those are your overall numbers. So just in a quick number, what do you have to give up from the general fund to get this from the CRAs? Is the general fund of the city loses about 640, let's call that $645,000. So $645,000 from that increment as it grows goes out of the general fund and is split over these 3 CRAs. So for taking that 645 away, the county kicks in 871,000. So that's about a 35% return. So I think the CRAs, I've always been of the opinion they're a two-edged sword. They have their advantages because you bank that return on your investment from county money, but then the other side of the equation is you earmark those funds so they can only be spent on certain things, and then B, it does take out a little bit from the general fund. Always talk about since I've worked for you as your city manager, keeping the general fund, using general revenues to fund general services and not trying to lean so much on our utility funds, and specifically the electric fund. This year we did not have an electric fund reduction, but we did just recently have the power cost adjustment reduced. So Leesburg regionally, these are those same old numbers, the first 1,000 of electric kilowatt usage, and so Leesburg regionally is looking pretty good. On a statewide level, maybe a tick high.
Is that 112 with the power adjustment?
Yes.
So that's not a real rate. That's not a real rate.
Yeah, nor is that.
Yeah, the 112.94 is not a real rate.
Which 124
you're saying the
you're looking at?
112.94 is that
which one?
Up top.
That's all inclusive.
Is that after we did the?
Yes.
So but so it's going to go back up.
We were at 117.
And it's going to go back up to 117.
I think so. I don't. Hopefully not anytime soon.
Yeah, it's going to go up somewhere. And I think the chart's a little misleading. I think you've done a great job with the electric department. But if you look statewide, we're like in the 75th percentile.
I was just about to get that out.
Okay, all right. Because I
was just about to get that out.
I mean,
you're talking to me here, so if I don't think you can ever have your electric rate too low. Competition's crazy out there, and this number represents probably the bottom of the top 2/3. So we're still kind of at the bottom. There's a number of munis that are a lot cheaper than we are, and the big guy out there who's driving this train, FPL, they're still $10 lower than we are. And so while we look good regionally, we do still have work to go there. Now I'm probably a little more hopeful that we're going to keep the power cost adjustment where it's at. I think that helps stave it off a little bit, but by no means would I say we can rest. This work constantly will need to be paid attention to. Just some general fund revenue updates. You know, the general fund, basically, we're going from about 26 to 31. However, that's due to some capital projects we're going to talk about. And so let's bust into those here a little bit. Some of the overall changes. I think we did a lot of nip and tuck to the budget this year. I mean, it's essentially still the same. You'll note here in a minute, though, one or two of the big areas that did change. First off, again, the millage rate we're saying stay the same. We did decrease some charges for services, some revenues that we received from the ISBA. The county's getting a little stingy with us on their interpretation of the ISBA. So that revenue stream is down about 65,000. We're in the process of fighting that number, and that's a fight brewing, but for now that's the best we're going to do, I think. We did have a little bit of an increase in fines and forfeitures, so that's a good one. Our miscellaneous revenue it has increased a little bit due to these areas, a little bit more interest on investments. The new Venetian Garden Center is bringing in, we estimate bringing in about 65,000 for that. That's due to the higher fees that you approved. So once that's open, we think that's going to have a positive impact on the general fund, and some increased radio towers at 44,000. The big expense is the 4.25 million in capital projects. Capital projects are lined up tomorrow. We can talk about that a little bit tonight, and I will a little bit more tonight on how we shifted around the revenue to pay for some of those projects. And then we decreased our gas revenue to keep over in gas areas to pay for some capital projects and to do a little bit of road surfacing since we cut that out last year. Pie chart of the revenue. Some other changes wanted to bring your attention to. The commission's down a little bit. We changed, you'll note 3 or 4 departments. We changed the cost allocation. The cost allocation is the amount of money our utilities pay to the general fund to receive general fund services. General fund services such as finance, city clerk, planning and zoning, city manager, attorney. There's an old formula we had on that. We manipulated it a little bit. We think we did it justifiably, but it allowed some costs to shift and stay in the enterprise funds and reduce the general fund costs by these numbers that we'll talk about. The decrease to the city commission. Public outreach did go up, and that was represented in the new contract with Lakefront TV. Administration went down. That was due to the allocations. Our miscellaneous division is up. I'm going to come back to this number because I think we do need to have a discussion about that. The Chief Johnson and I, well, frankly, disagree on where you need to go with your firefighter discussion. So his departmental budget shows a standard budget. Should the commission believe that we do need additional firefighters, we did stick a little money in miscellaneous revenues for that expense. However, Commissioner Dennison started off the evening with a desire to re-implement a program, and I think those things are easy, but there's a bunch of items that I think you will see that you still want. The reimbursement for college programming, Wi-Fi, texting capabilities, other homeless issues that are going to be popping up. So even though we're balanced, we still have a number of competing demands, and that's why I think you have to look good and hard at this number. Because I think the city overall needs to balance what is reasonably and adequately funded and provides a good service now versus things that we need to add. And I think we need to have that discussion, and that's why I bifurcated the budget. We'll have that discussion in a minute. We had the transfer to capital projects, and then we still have a surplus of about $165,000 in the budget. Since that's in your books that you received, since the books were published and sent out to you, that number's changed. It's actually gone down about by $5,000. But here's how it went down $5,000. You approved the SRO contracts. I think at the last meeting. That actually was an increase of about 30. I think that's about 34,000. We also had a change in the ad valorem assessments that gave us another 10 grand, but then the county hit us with an increase in the library revenue sharing. We're down about 24 there, and then those dispatcher adjustments. So when you put all this together, this surplus of 65 ended up being 160. So really where you're at with this budget on your desk, approved as it is, you have about $329,000 to talk about.
Let me ask you a question. Are these numbers on the rollback number, or is it on the, if we keep the taxes where they are right now?
If they keep the taxes where you are right now.
So we'd still be short that much money?
No. This is surplus.
Okay.
So let me answer that in a different way. You have $329,000 reserved in the black in the budget.
Okay.
That's computed at the current rate, which is a tax increase. So if you want to go to rollback, instead of have the 4.2 mils, and you want to go to 4.0 mils, that's going to cost you $257,000. You use that 320, and then you'd be down whatever that 320 less 270 number is. Do you follow?
Yes.
But in the future, on the television audience, would you rephrase that statement? Taxes going up, because they're not going up. It's new growth and it's new revenue. It's not an increase. Our
Taxes do subtly go up.
How can your Valorem stay the same? Your taxes go up.
Ad valorem's not staying the same. The millage is staying the same.
The millage,
but
yes,
your
but your
assessment,
properties go up.
most homeowners have the 3% cap. So if their house was worth $100,000 last year, we've got 6.9% growth in the general fund. That means their house value could technically go up to $106,000, up 6%, but they're capped at 103. So now their house is at 103, so last year it was 4.2 mils at 100.
I understand all that.
This year it's 4.2 million at 103, so that's a tax increase.
I just hope people don't think we're raising the millage rate, we're raising their taxes.
It's actually a positive thing, because the value of the houses in Lake County are going up. So people have got to understand that.
I would say that is positive.
Yes.
Yep, a couple other changes. Again, the cost allocation decrease in finance was big, about 220 grand. We are recommending another utility billings position in customer service. Public Works, we kind of changed Public Works around a little bit. We shifted a lot of stuff, and it's almost net neutral there. But we decreased streets by 276,000. That's a good number, and we did this when we changed our electric rate that we charged ourselves for street lights. So we saved ourselves 275 grand. Our facilities went down about 95,000. We moved a couple positions, but we're adding up 2 positions. The grounds increased 184. This is due to that landscape contract. And then administration increased 15,000 for the way we're changing around for funding of a deputy public works director.
Wouldn't this be a wash, though? Because if you took back that much in electric because of the lights, the city lights, then the electric has lost that much.
No, the electrics lost a profit that would go into their their reserve fund. Mm-hmm. So essentially, you save money by being able to buy your electricity for your general fund purposes more at cost. So it's more of a pass-through in the electric fund instead of having a profit that would sit over in the electric fund. If you were paying FPL, that's what they would be charging you, a full rate, and they would be making money off your street lights.
What was the full utilities cost allocation change for the year?
Do you know what that number is?
219 there.
You mean like a dollar amount?
Yeah, dollar amount for the whole, the you shifted for the whole year.
I want to say it was like 400,000 or 500,000.
That honestly, that bothers me. I mean, because that's just passing on costs to the utilities, which is going to lead to a higher rate otherwise than it would otherwise be if you didn't. And if we're going to shift the utility costs, then I think we ought to be taking that same amount of money and lowering utilities, not plowing into general fund projects. Because my feeling is we have not reduced the electric transfer in quite some time now. We're still at $4 million, which is almost 8%. To get it down to 6%, which would be kind of the gold standard, that's another $1 million we need to lower that transfer. And I think long term, that's where we got to go. And this is moving us in the wrong direction.
$631,000.
Yeah, that's a huge.
The general fund did have 3% increase for salaries. So, I mean, it's not all of just shifting the allocation, but yeah, it's $600,000.
That's a huge number that I think deserves to be dealt with in the utilities, not growing the general fund.
What was that number? I think that finishes off this slide. An additional position, we also talking to recreation. On the larger scale, now Commissioner Roebuck brought up the utility increases, and I understand that. But I think also I think there's about 3 other things I want to talk to you about, and then go to your questions from an overall perspective, and then go kind of drill it down into departments. From a reserve level, our numbers are still looking very, I'm going to say okay, very, very between good and probably not very good, but better than okay. But we're on the track that we wanted. In 14, our reserve fund was 10 million. Now it's projected to be about 10 million. But we remember we had the bump where we had, as that grew, we started taking money out of that fund, storing it, using it for capital projects. So you'll note this decrease from 12 to 10 represents pretty much what you transferred out of there for the pool project, the 2.6. So the general fund reserve is still looking pretty good. Our recommendation to you has always been keep this number above 7.5. So with that in mind, we do this chart to say what can we do on a capital basis. So if your reserve is at 10, we say keep it at 7.5. That leaves you 2.5 for capital projects. The fiber fund from the sale still has $3 million available that you haven't spent. In December, you're going to get a check for about 1.875. So if you add these 3 numbers, that leaves you with a capital improvements pot that we built of about 7.4 million. The staff has recommended this year about 4.2 million in projects, so that leaves you about 3.1 beyond fiscal year 20.
That December 18 should be 19, is that right? Okay.
Which
I just want to be sure it's money still to come in.
yeah, that's 19. That's yep, one correct. So that's where your cash flow for capital projects is. So let's talk about a couple of the things that I think you do need to discuss that I think have an impact. I think it leads to Commissioner Roebuck's statement a little bit on shifting out those allocation costs. And while it appears you do have cash, I think we're doing a good game of shifting the blocks around, and I think you can maintain that for a little while. So I don't think it's red flag. But it's definitely yellow, and that's kind of how we've always been. And if we operate cautiously, I think we can balance that. But there's things in there that I think we need to make hard decisions about. So, and flat out one, this is always a difficult one to talk about, but it's fire services. The fire chief recommends that you need to add 3 new firefighters. His opinion on that, you can ask him, but I will give you the debrief on it, is he believes that it's critical for our services to be able to provide fire and emergency services with 3 men on a truck. We can do that at some stations, but not all stations, and then that ability is hampered as people will take leave or accrued vacation. His solution to that is 3 new firefighters accomplishes that goal, helps us provide those services to that standard, and then in turn provides a better service. My opinion is totally different on this one. I believe your fire services are probably one of the highest funded, best funded, always sought after first in the city. I don't think the fire folks feel that way because we always talk about them. But I think we always talk about them because we have great fire services. They do a very critical, important job. But in my opinion, I think they're funded where they need to be. And I think that's also complicated because if you take more of a hardcore stance on fire services, there's a potential to really generate some significant revenue, but it does come, there's a two-sided sword to everything. And that's my recommendation is, A, I think you need to keep your fire services where they're at for now. I think there's global change coming with Villages growth and other ways and different things going on in the county that says, let's just see what happens in the next few years with Villages growth. Let's see what happens with how the county rearranges their service. Or the kind of the harder core method would be, let's reconsider not having the fire department and go into county fire services. So I wanted to show you a quick chart on that number. And so essentially, this chart lies out 3 avenues. It's if you would have a negotiation with the county whereby the county would take over fire services, and they would treat the city as an unincorporated resident, you would then pay the fire assessment tax that's called the MSTU for the county, and you would pay the county fire assessment fee,
which is
$198 for residential. So if you did that, they take over our fire services, they take over our equipment, they manage how they would rearrange that, they become in the fire service business. Let's not talk about level of service yet because I understand that that is a significant discussion. But let's just talk about money. Right now, their proposed budget for the fire department is about $5.9 million. If you did what I explained, you would lose $1.3 million in revenue, and you would probably also have to pay a closed pension fund for the fire department. When you subtract these two numbers from that expense, you're left with $3.8 million of available money in the budget. If you kept that $3.8 million and you kept the millage rate where it was, did what I described, you would have $3.8 million in your pocket to shift around to the city, wherever you would want.
Every year.
Every year. And that number would grow. The cost, however, to the taxpayer would be $182. Okay? So that would be almost $4 million in your pocket, but City of Leesburg taxpayer would increase by $182. Basically, that's the difference of adding the MSTU, adding the county fire assessment fee rather, and then subtracting out our $58. Did you follow that?
Yes, but one question. What was the amount that we would have to come up with for the 3 additional firefighters?
$169. Call it $170.
So if we went after the county for the money that they have not paid us for all the support we've given them, that would be a chunk of money. And 2, these firefighters, if the Villages kicks in more and they're taking care of the Villages and whatnot, these firefighters could step right in through attrition when we have firefighters retiring.
Let's come
so
back.
It's not something that you're going to have to pay year after year after year.
Let's come back to that discussion.
And I guess my question is, are you going to do this for every department, or is it just going to do the fire department, give it to the county? Because, I mean, are you going to do this for police? Are you going to tell us we're going to say $4 million if we get the police to the county? Are we going to do recreation? Because to me, it's a little disingenuous. Every year we come, we've discussed this at least 4 years, maybe, giving this to the county. Every year we come, I don't think it's fair to the fire chief or the firefighters that every year we come, we say, let's get us to the county. So my question is, and you throw in this $3.8 million, we're going to just have this $3 million to do whatever we want to do. Are we going to do every department like this? Because really, I think it's a sad thing that we come here tonight and we get popped and says, hey, we get us to the county, and we get to save $3.8 million. You can say the same thing. Let's raise the taxes and get $3 million. I just think it's not really fair to a firefighter who works for the city of Leesburg that every year, you throw my job out. But we're not considering other departments. We probably can say the same thing with any department in the city of Leesburg. We can privatize. So I just really don't think this is fair, especially over $169,000 that the chief recommends. I'm sure the staff always recommends a new position, and I don't want anybody to feel like if I recommend a new position because I think it'll make my job easier, then the city manager comes to the city commission and says, hey, we'll give it to the county. To me, that's a fear tactic, and the staff really can't do their job that we're paying what they're going to be afraid every time they make a recommendation to the budget. So for me, this exercise is nice, but if you're not going to do every department like that, I don't see why we're doing the fire department like that.
Well, Mayor, I think I answered that question before you posed it on me.
I'm just letting you know what my feelings are.
I understand.
And for me, it's almost a waste of my time. We talked about this at least five years.
If the commission unilaterally wants to increase the fire department budget every year pursuant to the recommendation of the fire chief, I will do that for you.
Mayor, I think you let me talk. When you finish, I'll talk. Because I hope you don't let your staff overtalk you in the staff meeting, so I don't want you to overtalk me. Now, I don't feel the best, but at the same time, I don't want to come into a budget meeting and go back and forth with you on this issue. My comment, and I said loud and clear, that and I don't think the fire chief is making a recommendation. You've already gave us the doom and gloom. You said the chief says this, you disagree with him. That's already set in the mind of the commission that you disagree with your staff. But yet we have it here on the board. So to me, if you disagree so much, this shouldn't be on the board. And then you come and say, we're taking a recommendation of the fire chief. No, you put it on the slide. So it's not the fire chief. You're the city manager. You put it on the slide. So don't pretend like we're taking the chief's recommendation. You're the city manager. You put it on the thing. You've already told you disagree with it. So I mean, this doom and gloom stuff to me, man, that's not to me what a budget workshop should be. We talk about it, but the doom and gloom, like I'm gonna get $3.8 million if we give it to the fire department, to the county. Who wouldn't do that? But I think we've had this exercise many years, multiple years, and to do this again, I just think to me it's unfair to your staff.
We haven't had this exercise since I've been on the commission.
Yeah, it's been 4 years when they wanted to try to turn the fire department over to the county, and then it was not beneficial to the city. Right. Not for staff moving and everything, but what the county wanted us to pay, regardless of the fact that they were now working for the county.
I remember it, but it was before me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it's fair to say that it's every year.
Well, it was up till about 4 years ago.
Okay.
I think I laid out my position and the options for you very clearly. I didn't hit the other charts. There's obviously a couple of different ways you can spin this. If it is the commission's desire to add the 3 positions, so be it. I've got no beef with that. And if it is your commission's desire that I never bring this topic back to you, I'll do that too. I don't see that's my job. I think it's okay for me and my staff to have disagreement, and that's why we come to you. I think that there's probably going to be disagreement on this body, and that's why this comes up. But if it's the commission's direction right now not to have this topic and you direct to put 3 firefighters in the budget, we can end this discussion right now and go on to the next topic.
Well, I'm going to say 3, but I don't think get 3 positions or give it to the county. I think that's the discussion. We're going to talk about 3 positions. We're talking about giving it, reconsidering to the county. I think if we're talking about 3 positions, I think that's what we discuss between now and the end of the budget. Can we do it? But just throw it out and just say, I mean, that's a big decision to throw out and say, let's reconsider the fire service to the county. I mean, my thought was we talking about 3 firefighters. We're going to do yes or we're going to do no. But then to me, you got a nuclear bomb, so we'll just give it to the county. So I mean, I think that's where my discomfort comes in. If we're talking about 3 firefighters, let's look at the budget, see if there's anything we can cut, add, whatever. Then we get to the budget. It doesn't work for the city, but to drop a nuclear bomb and says, oh, by the way, we're gonna get $3.8 million. We say just give it to the county. So to me, that's like.
Commissioner, it's not a nuclear bomb. I talked to everybody about this prior to the meeting. You know where I was headed coming into this. The chief knew. There's fire department guys here, so I feel like I'm doing my job advising you.
Okay,
if your position back to me is that we never have this discussion again and add 3 new firemen, you know, I can take my marching orders too. I see my job is to advise you.
Yeah, I'm doing
I feel I've done my job.
And for me, I would prefer, as long as I'm here, that you don't have this discussion anymore. So that's my position.
I need to hear from 4 other voices.
Well, I'm going to tell you that if you can save $3.8 million a year, I want to hear it, whether it's the fire or recreate, anything. I want to hear it. If you're talking about saving $3.8 million, doesn't mean we're going to do it. We need to have the discussion.
but we don't have the discussion except this particular department. I mean, we can look through the whole city and have it on every department. So if that's the way we're going to go, how can we save money by getting rid of departments? I think every department should be scrutinized up on here, and every department head realize that my job can disappear any year that the commission wants to save $3 million. So I mean, if that's the way we're going to go, and we've been down that road. We've had that commission where it was, let's privatize cutting grass, and we had staff looking at us like, wow, so my job's on line. I mean, and that's how private industry works. I mean, you look at it, but I just don't think that we just pull out one department every 4 years, every 3 years, and say, let's discuss it, and the other departments we don't talk about, because you can say the same thing with library services. You can say that we just took a hit from the county. We can say this, I mean, and personally for me, Holland Lake County, and we did get $6,000 for the boat ramp, but we didn't get anything for CDBG block grant for the last 2.5 years. We didn't get anything when it comes to our schools. So when you're talking about calling the county or the school board, once you spread that out, you don't get the response time or the cooperation that I think that you get as a city government. So that's always been, I think, the biggest impact for me is when I call somebody, if I don't get the services, will somebody return my phone call? And maybe I don't have the same kind of pull everybody else got, but I just think that as a regular citizen should be able to call whoever's giving them service and get a response. So that's my 3 minutes.
You presented it.
We need an answer. So the loudest voice I'm hearing, the loudest voice. Okay, we need an answer.
Ask one question?
Moving forward.
Not just completely unrelated. I mean, I'm the newest guy on the commission, and I see the savings to average homeowner 182.
No, that's the cost.
No, that's this would be
I was
cost.
trying to compare it to the 198 number I heard a minute ago. I heard if we went to county.
Oh, that's on the fire assessment fee number. It's not a, this is an annual tax. This is an annual tax savings or cost.
They pay the 198, but then they don't pay our 58, and then they pay an MTSU. So it's the difference in all.
I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. Is 198 versus 58 or 198 versus 182? That was my question.
This is the data that supports that chart.
Okay.
Okay.
And the 169 for the 3, that's insurance, work comp, retirement?
Yes, it's everything.
Okay, that's everything all in.
Yep.
Thank you.
The other big thing I think to look at in the general fund is some IT upgrades. So let me tell you what we've added.
I know you want to get off fire. Can I ask one question? Other cities in Lake County and Lake County, do they all run with 3 people per truck? And I knew you had this.
I think that's all over the place. Is that a fair answer?
That's the majority of the county. With the cities, the county's even striving to get 3 on a truck.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
All cities just about run 3 on a truck. The county is working on getting on 3 on a truck. I think they have about 40% of their trucks at 3 minimum truck.
Okay, but all the other municipalities run at 3, or close.
Vermont is actually at 4 on a truck. They've done some.
And I know we talked about this before. I apologize.
I can think of all of the paid fire departments in this county outside of Fruitland Park and Umatilla are at 3 on a truck.
Okay, thank you.
And Mike, just for real quick, just because you haven't done it long, the bottom line really boils down to, if there's not 3 firemen on that truck when they get to a fire, they can't go in. So if you're in there and there's 2 firemen out there, they got to wait till a 3rd fireman shows up from somewhere, from somebody.
Okay. And I do the
So that's the purpose.
Thank you for clarifying that.
How many times has that happened in the last year?
A fire that
We couldn't go in
Chief?
to a fire.
How many times
That
has
you
it
got to a
happened
fire,
that
you
we
couldn't
weren't
go in
able to go into
to
a
wait.
fire because lack of personnel?
I couldn't give you that answer.
Yeah,
You can't
I would say it's probably never.
I'm not going to say never, because we did have a tremendous save in Arlington Ridge where they had an elderly person that was close to being overcome by smoke, and those 3 firefighters.
Well, why don't we just change this, because if we keep going down that road, at the end of the day, you're going to put a price on somebody's life. Like if we only lose 2.
So let's go to 5. That'd be better. That you're putting a price on life by saying 3 and not 5. So don't go down that road trying to say that me not wanting to put 3, I'm saying I don't value lives. I'm saying we've had them and we haven't had any issues.
Yeah, but when you have one issue and you're standing out in the front yard because you can't go in, it's an issue.
Well, then let's get 5.
It's the state. But you don't have to. The state says you have to have 3, not the city of Leesburg. The state's one that says you have to have 3, not us. But they don't say you have to have 5. I was just saying, I don't want the tone of us to come out that, if we've only had 2 or 3 instances where we couldn't go in to help somebody, then
No, my tone is
It
I don't want to fix
outweighs.
problems that don't exist. That's my tone.
Okay, I get it, but do problems ever exist? Do we ever have a murder? Do we ever have a fire? Do we ever have a suicide? Yes, not many, hopefully, and we're not Chicago, but they happen. We can end it right now. Anybody want to, and who's up for doing away with the fire department?
What, for exploring it?
Well, no, just, we can finish discussion. There ain't no sense waste 2 hours. We're going to get like this. I'm not voting to get rid of it. Are you?
Nope.
Are you?
No.
Move on.
Okay, so we don't want to explore
We don't-
saving the 1.6 million.
But,
Not
if
even
they-
here, because this is like a 1-year process
What's a 1-year process?
to explore it.
Well, the problem is
How it would
3
work.
of us
We
have
don't
already
know.
been through that 1-year process 15 times.
No, you haven't been through it 15 times. You've been through it
2
one
times.
time. One time with the county. I know
No,
it's
I
one
bought
time
Bill
with the
Polk
county.
twice head to head on this.
Yeah, but the county looked at it one time with a prior county manager, and the numbers didn't look anything like this. Nothing like it.
Still takes 3 and there's 3 no's. So I guess you guys can sit here all night if you want to and talk about it. I don't care.
Okay, so yep.
Maintain. Talk about it.
IT.
Sorry.
Moving on.
Sorry, I slowed you
I
down.
think that it's just an issue of choices. As I said, I think my job is to provide you the information to make the choice. On IT, we about 4 major issues that we identified prior to the budget year to bring to your attention. Number 1 was the ADA compliance. We are well on our way. We shifted around the funds to get that accomplished. We hope to have everything implemented by the end of the year. I got the number on the end right on that one. The new community development software in planning and building, there are some new applications that aren't going to be supported, so we need to change that out. That is going to be a cost of about $328,000. We'll talk about that when we talk about the building fund. We made an allocation for that there. We have talked a little bit, and again, another thing I want to advise you about citywide texting. Everybody continues to use their cell phone a little bit. With the issue that we went through with the ADA, our records are being watched. If we continue to text, we need to monitor our texting, and we need to make our text public records. To do that, so everybody can use their cell phone and everybody can communicate freely, there's an adaptation that we can get. We can get everybody up to speed. That's going to cost $24,000 a year forever. If we don't want to spend that money to upgrade so that we can text communicate with one another, then we need to beef up our policy and really strike down on no texting city business. So that's something that we need to think about.
These are city-owned phones or any communication?
City or personal. If you text me
Right.
and you ask me a question, that's a public record.
I understand that.
And there needs to be a record of it.
Okay.
Now, there's certain things you can ask me on a text message, like, Al, what time is the budget workshop meeting? 5:30. That's not a public records. Al, what do you think about cutting the grass at Venetian Gardens? It needs to get done 3 times a week. That's a public record. So there's I'm going to say we're pretty good about the texting, but bring this to your attention, because I do think we're at the point to where if we don't want to spend this money, then we do need to put together a policy, and then when each other, or if you text me or whatever, then we need to have a record that says, hey, email me that question or something.
Are we
like
texting
that.
and driving? I mean, that kind of answers that. If we are, we probably need to get rid of it.
Of course, we're not either. But
Of course.
that's something you need to think about. We need some direction on how you guys want to move in that direction. Public Wi-Fi, Mary, you bring up this every now and again. Claremont's bragged on their public Wi-Fi. We can move to that system. Now, incrementally, we have been moving towards that system, and we can do it rather inexpensively. And so each year for the last year or so, we have had about a $10,000 expense where we can go and get a server, do whatever. So certain areas have public Wi-Fi. So like here at City Hall, over next door, we have public Wi-Fi. We can expand that out into the courtyard this coming fiscal year, probably for about 10 grand. And then we can go by bits and pieces. Then we can kind of hit Venetian Gardens, then we can hit Berry Park, or we can go to different parts of the community and slowly build that tree out. And you can do that, I think, relatively smallly. And when it's done, there'll be about a $10,000 increase in your operational cost that will be added in there layer by layer. Or you can just do it all at once. 150 grand is about what it'll cost, and then it'll cost you about $10,000 a year to keep it up.
After you do it small pieces, how many years you think it'll take before it becomes citywide?
5 or 6?
I think you've identified 4 places that we want to work through, and so probably over the next 3 years we could probably do that.
And I didn't hit them all, I'm sure, because we'll keep coming up with different spots, or we'll get into dead spots. So I would probably go 5 to 8, because we'll come up with the easy spots real quick, and then we'll run it out over the basin, and then so that I think that number's going to grow, and I think even at the 150 number, it's going to grow. So that's what public Wi-Fi costs.
And just for me, I think it's something that we can market our city on, doing incremental. I don't think we're gonna be able to market us that, we got 1/3 of the city Wi-Fi. But I think other cities that are progressive, I think they're really marketing that citywide Wi-Fi. People talk about the school system and the accessibility of children with Wi-Fi. So I don't know if there's any kind of partnership that we can do with the school board and community partners that we can try to get that 150,000 to do a big splash, marketing splash. At Leesburg is now a Wi-Fi city. But for me, I think that'll be especially with the new Lakefront Center, I think to be able to go out there on a boat and have access to Wi-Fi without having any interruption, I think it may be something we can market our city on. So.
What does citywide Wi-Fi mean exactly? Like, explain to me where that encompasses.
If you have your phone and you're Joe Q Public and you don't have good data storage on your phone and you want internet access, you can tap into the public Wi-Fi and get your internet
Anywhere
access.
Within city limits?
Anywhere
literally?
Where we have a Wi-Fi signal.
No, I understand, but when you say citywide, what do you mean by that?
I would define that roughly as half a mile core over by the mall on 441, probably a 3 or 4 mile circle around City Hall that gets down to the basin, and then probably another 1 or 2 mile circle, say Susan Street Parks Complex, because those are kind of like the 3 major wings of the city.
So more or less just throughout the city, not.
I've used that.
Yeah,
so I think it's still we're going to have dead spots, but I think those would be the areas you would want to focus on, and that would be about the cost, the $150. Bottom line, those are the major concepts of the, didn't mean to be going backwards, just making sure those are the major concepts of the general fund. You put everything in there, let me get back again. You're looking going from about 26.8 to 31.1 with the 4.2 of capital projects, so you're really still looking at the same general fund number of about $26 million. And this is, remember that 4.2 up here is that non-reoccurring debt or non-reoccurring expense that you're using your cash to do. Those capital projects we'll talk about, is that tomorrow or Thursday, but they roughly include library or teen center, a little bit more pool money, and marina improvements, and a program out there which we were dubbing Phase 4 of the Venetian Gardens project. Do you have any direction on this part of it? Do you want to drill down and do the individual details and go from there?
Until we hear what comprises that $4 million, I think we ought to just keep going right now.
The city commission budget, essentially the same. We gave you some highlights on that. Do you all have any questions on that? Executive is Lakefront TV, which is pretty much the new contracts that you laid out. Any questions there?
I know I'm the one who, made an issue of this a couple of meetings ago in the commission. The only thing I wanted to add is, I've changed my position from that night. I mean, I'm not prepared to pull the plug on it at all. I mean, I'm just one vote, but I have talked. I would like to see us find some partners in that thing over time, like a 3 to 5 year plan. That's just an idea. I thought we had partners is my point, and I found it was all on us, and I just throw that out there. And I'm not saying I want to fix that in this budget. I'm just saying maybe that's a 3 to 5 year goal. See if we can find some partners. I know we don't need to get bogged down on that. I just throw that out.
So this is a thought. At one time, we were seeking other funds and partners, and then they were getting most of the airtime because we were having to subsidize it, so we were losing a lot of the coverage. So that's how we ended up here.
So one thing I'd like you to follow up on, because we were promised that there would be a digital marketing strategy as part of this increased funding, and there is not. I went and looked at their YouTube channel. Nobody watches the videos, so they're not. I don't think they're being marketed. So I don't know where. That was supposed to be part of the deal. And I'd also like to see. I know they must have it, because when if I go as a private business to advertise, I can get demographic information as to like what type of reach I'm getting. I'd like to see that for us, not potential reach, but actual viewership reach, so we can see who's watching this.
Yeah.
Administration. You going back to Lakefront? Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah, I was just thinking about it.
Any questions on the administration division?
History, Jay, so I appreciate
I was in your seat once.
Rookie.
City clerk.
What are the promotional in administration?
We used to fund things recurringly out of the city manager, contingency, the gala.
One of the big, I did 0 contingency this year, right?
I think we put 10 in.
I have reduced the city manager contingency from 100,000 to 10 grand. And well, we over the course of these past 6 years, and essentially the recurring things that I gave out of the contingency, I built in.
Okay.
Contribution to the drum line, contribution to the chamber, the CDC senior luncheon, I made a regular in there. So I tried to minimize that so that I didn't have so much free money, and we set the budget and we live by a little stricter rules.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
City clerk. Elections. City attorney.
Why are we budgeting money in this cycle for advertising? Do we have anything?
I think it's just that $1,000, right? It's just kind of a placeholder number.
We don't have usually.
I thought we only budget that in an election year. And it's minor, but
We just typically throw
it's
$1,000
every year.
in there.
Okay, and you just don't spend it. Okay. Another way to pad it.
City attorney. Miscellaneous division. That's that's essentially where your contingency for the is the capital money in there too?
The firefighter money is in there, the vacation buyback.
Say those out loud.
This is where the firefighter money is, the vacation buyback. We have the debt service payments, and then the 4.2 million for the transfer to capital project.
How'd we have so much in the vacation buyback?
It's what happens is we don't try to guess who's going to use the money, because it would be like if I use it, it's going to come out of the city manager budget. So we just stick about what the general fund would need to cover it everywhere, so we don't inflate the other budgets.
But we don't do that in the previous years?
We don't actually run it through here. It's just a budget, so the money's in the fund. So if you look in the various departments, you'll see vacation buyback, like police and fire. We usually make sure it covers police and fire.
I got
But
you.
we don't budget that. It's 180.
Why is such a big increase on personal services?
That's where the firefighters are. The 3 firefighters.
I repeat Commissioner Hurley's question, why is there so much in here if you're getting it from the other departments?
There's 169,000.
For the firefighters.
Where's the buyback?
The buyback's 20.
So that 362 is made up of 169,739 for 3 firefighters if you're going to add them. If you do that, we'll amend this number.
Yep.
That will go into the fire department number. That number comes down. Then it's left with 189,000 for vacation buyback. So that's typically the value of when people sell back a week here and a week there. That's typically the value that we sell every year, and that might be only 125,000. But what we'll go do is we'll make a budget allocation, and then we assign a portion of that 189 to whatever division of the general fund buys from that. Those two numbers comprise the 362, plus $3 grand miscellaneous. And then the 5.9 is basically the 4.2 for the capital projects that we'll talk about tomorrow, and about $1 million more for debt service, which is the library note, and is that the 2000 note or something like that? Police station, library, or the gym. Finance, that's a decrease there, pretty much representative of the allocation change. Customer service, not too much change there. That's the increase, pretty much a portion of the position because of the way we weaved it in there.
So the customer service division, I noticed that it's grown quite a lot over the last couple years. From a salary standpoint, is that rates, staffing? Where's that coming from?
Both. You've adjusted both rates and staffing for the customer service reps.
Where are we on an entry rate at customer service?
It's $14.75.
Has that helped with our turnover?
It has helped.
I think so. That's strong.
I think the number.
What was happening was we were losing the customer service to other departments for $1 an hour. But it takes a year to train those people.
Right.
And so for $1 an hour, they leave for an easier job. That stopped that piece of it.
So now the meter reading tablets we're going to get, we have that private company. They'll be one responsible for those tablets, or
they'll be using them.
They'll be using them, and we're going to make sure they don't get tossed around and replaced every year.
They didn't have problems so far.
Okay.
They're actually like a large cell phone.
Okay.
And they've got the military grade covers on them.
Okay.
They're really nice.
And what goes into other current charges? It's just a big number.
That's credit card fees.
Oh, okay.
How are we doing on people paying over the phone? So sometimes when I call, after the people call me rather than say, "Can you pay my light bill?" So I call up and I don't know the number. Is there any way we can look at doing anything easier than just getting the whole 8 numbers to the left, 8 numbers to the right, so someone can pay their bill easier? Do we think that'll be easier for more people to call in to pay their bill?
I'm not sure I follow you there.
Like if I'm calling to pay electric bill, they ask me for my account number, the number to the left, number to the right, which can be a kind of long number. So if I'm just calling, say Dan Roebuck's in Spain, and he says my lights got turned on, John, can you call and pay my light bill? Can I then I can Google Dan Roebuck other than maybe his address, or as opposed to his account number? He's in Spain, he don't know his account number by heart.
Actually, we try not to take payments from people who aren't customers.
Oh, so I've been breaking the law.
It creates a big problem for us. So if you don't have that information, we probably won't take the payment.
Yeah.
How does it create problem? Just out of curiosity, because I mean, if somebody wants to pay my light bill, I encourage it.
Put your account number on Facebook.
A lot of times they're using fraudulent credit cards to do it.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
They're calling for the girlfriend. I'm going to pay your bill for you. They'll make you happy. Yeah, they're using somebody else's credit card.
And you can't go after them because you have no idea who they are.
Like a $5,000 tip.
Okay, thank you.
But they can't use a fraudulent card with an account number?
Yeah, but they usually don't have the information. it's still, I mean, nothing's infallible. You know, we have problems with that as well.
If somebody
Run
calls,
bills sometimes with fraudulent cards. They only do it once, and then they can't pay with credit cards anymore.
well, if John wants to pay my light bill, just call me, and I'll give you my number.
Too big. It might be too much. But I was just trying to say, you know, easy way for somebody can do it, make it, you know, more convenient. But all right.
Procurement, no major changes there. Warehouse, almost identical.
What the personal services, is that the salaries and whatnot?
Yep.
Why did procurement go down?
Might have shifted somebody out of there.
You know, we've got a new employee in there.
Okay. New employee there.
New employee, so the salary went down.
Oh, the salary, okay, gotcha, thank you.
They're paying to work here now, at least.
Yeah.
Human resources, essentially the same.
What are the professional and contract services for human resources?
The online application system and the new badge system. So whenever we make a badge for somebody, that's
What do we use
contracted.
badges for? Curious.
What do we use badges? Is that the ones at the airport?
That, and also
Just
we have
ID?
some of them are smart cards that let you into certain areas in IT, certain areas at SCADA, electric, and also when we're under high alert, in order to get into buildings, you have to identify yourself as a citizen.
Okay.
And also when our employees go to businesses, they can say they are who they are to come in and service them.
Okay.
Is it just a one-time charge?
This one, I believe, is the software that we have right now that we work with IT on. They're no longer going to be servicing it,
Okay.
so we have to buy a new program.
Okay.
IT. Any questions on IT? That number does not include those other IT things that we spoke of tonight.
The 140, I assume that's for professional, that's the ADA. That's just the website then?
That's the contractor to monitor and do everything.
Yes.
Once it's 10,000 a month, so like the agenda and all that.
Oh,
I
okay.
hope that number's too big. And by the way, if you noticed in your packets the last day, some of the logos and the different stuff is really kind of trimmed down a little bit. That's a result of the ADA and keeping the documents less expensive to duplicate through that contractor to keep that cost down.
And then the machinery and equipment was up rather substantially over prior years. Is that for some specific reason?
It just looks like additional hardware.
Let me come back to that one.
Okay. And then again, I'd highlight the utilities allocation. Can I get a breakdown, not now, but of how we came up with that utilities allocation?
And then
CIP is increased machinery and equipment due to the purchase of UPSs for the electric department in Public Works. We're no longer able to get parts for those things, and it's costing us a ton of money to get them serviced. So we're purchasing 2 new ones.
Okay.
Any questions on GIS?
What software are we buying?
We are upgrading our SRE products, the mapping software that we use throughout the city.
Okay.
We're doing that both for the GIS department and for the electric department. So in 4636, you'll see an increase there for an upgrade or a migration to the new version of software. and an interface to the products we have purchased for Smart Grid. And then the Esri products are those that are used throughout the city for napping. And we need to upgrade those because we're upgrading the other products which interface to.
Okay.
So I believe the total cost is in the like maybe 55,000, 35 on one end and maybe 25 on the other. I can't off the top of my head real quick.
Okay.
Police, no real major changes in police.
Two things for me on this. I know that we're going up for dispatchers, but obviously it doesn't tell us what increase we're trying to give to retain dispatchers. When I talked to the chief today, I think he said he is, was it down 9?
Yeah, no, we addressed that at the outset. We're
Yeah,
7,
but how much?
15 down.
No, what I'm simply asking is what is the increase we're
The
looking to
increase
give?
for dispatchers will range from 3% to 17%.
Okay.
My position, we have a line out at 15, 6, 3, 6, 15, 17, 13, 6, 17.
Okay. So
Plus
it's
more
kind of
funding for the open positions at the increased level.
all right.
You say we're down 9?
I think it was 7.
7.
7. And then I want to hit the commission with this. I mean, I know that when you look at salary stuff, and we've had this discussion 100 times, so and I'm not trying to open up the can of worms as you always put it. The only thing I wanted to look at and see how you guys felt is, you know, we have out of all of the, I think there's 12 city municipality police departments in Lake County, and obviously we are the largest police department in Lake County other than the sheriff's office. So for me, our chief is ranked in his pay towards the bottom of all these cities. And if you look back, if you guys remember back 5 years ago when our morale was horrible, they had never had raises, we lost a lot of tenure. Our guys have been with us a long time. We had to get a bunch of new guys, and when you lose your older guys, obviously, you know, your risk goes up, your exposure to liability goes up because all that training is gone and all that. And now, I think it was February of last year, we became accredited, and under the chief's tutelage and guidance, he's really turned the police department around. And I'd like to see us make his pay a little more competitive. You know, he has 109 people he oversees. So, anybody have a problem with trying to adjust his pay to be more competitive? I mean, Tavares has 20 and he makes 20 grand more than chief does.
No, I think there should be a study on what the other police chiefs are making in the area and compare it to the number of policemen they are supervising. That's a very good point. You know, it was a long time that our employees were missing out, so I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I'd want to see some data about other other surrounding counties.
My door chief was at 133,900.
What was?
Yeah.
Well, the new guy's going to come in at 145 because he ain't going to take over that mess.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy over there. But Al, can you bring something back to us?
Just
Absolutely.
And Chief Hicks is at 115.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to look at it.
How much do you make, Al?
182.
Okay. Can't make him pay over the city manager.
Less than John Drury.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's why I said the cities. I don't want to base anything off Tavares.
Less than John. More money too. And less than Darren. More money too.
But if
What would you do with more money, you know?
I know, right?
I'd find
I
some
mean,
place.
it's, you know, it's an ego thing.
I think I agree, and we need to be competitive, and I think I agree we need to look at it and make adjustments accordingly.
You mind doing that?
Absolutely.
That's all I have. Thanks.
This is minor, but it just seems odd that we come up with like a budget number for crimes, like how many crimes we want to have. Like it's on here, and we're going to reduce everything but DUIs. We're going to have a couple extra of those. So I don't know how we come up with those numbers. But
Extra task force.
I missed that. That's interesting.
That's the repeat, the forfeiture fund, if anybody wants to talk about the forfeiture.
Please do.
Police education fund, police impact fee fund, fire. Fire, essentially is pretty much the same. If we're going to bring over add those 3 new personnels, we'll shift that number around to reflect the change, and you'll be sitting at about $6 million. I'm getting, although there hasn't been specific direction, it seems the consensus is to do that. So if nobody says anything now, you'll see a modified budget that has that in there.
Well, I think from John and me, the main discussion was no discussion really to do away with it. I do think that it warrants to have the discussion based on some of the meetings that we have had of whether we hold off for a year and see how it goes with the villages. I mean, I'm open for discussion. I'm not open to discussion.
What's the logic of waiting a year with the villages? I mean,
I think villages growth is probably another 3 years out before they get into the 470 property. The villages plan is going to grow down Lake Sumter. Commissioner Dennison, you had another statement earlier this evening.
3 people could be gone toward attrition.
I don't see those numbers. You said something about the county and using other personnel. I don't see that meeting pursuant to the chief's wants. I don't see that meeting his need. It comes back to interdependence on mutual aid and those type of things. So I mean, if you're going to try to get 3 guys on a truck, then now's the time to do it. I think the long term is you're probably going to have another major fire department in that, for lack of better words, Okahumpka territory. You're going to have a Villages Fire Department. You're going to have a Lake County Fire Department. You're going to have a Leesburg Fire Department, all in that 470 Turnpike region. I think if we take a regional approach and do a little bit better with our intergovernmental agreements, which is another thing you mentioned, which I don't think we'll have success on, getting the county. In fact, the county's going the other way, trying to pay less. So yeah, I think there's some energies out there that later on, that if everybody uses their marbles correctly, which I think is not going to happen unless you go have one unified department that does it. I think if everybody has their fingers in the pie, I don't see us getting to an efficient, perfect system. So the wait and see would be, we'll see what everybody does. I think some of the tasks that you've talked about are it's not low-lying fruit on that one. You know, those are tough tasks, and I wouldn't bank on those in a budget process. So it comes down to, we're going to keep the fire department. Okay, I understand that. And then it comes to, are you happy with your level of service, or do you want to increase your level of service?
So with the village's growth and so forth, you're saying you can't contract?
I think ultimately we can.
You can't contract the fire department if all of a sudden there's a county and the village's fire department? I think we're going to need to talk about interlocal agreements that go into a little more detail than that we've gotten out of the villages in the past. So right now, what they're only going to come out for fire, and I'm looking for a nod that I'm correct in that.
Villages would most likely use the same price they do at Fruitland Park. It is on a need basis, but they only service their people.
Which is a fire. So if there's a fire out, am I wrong, David?
If there's a fire, it's all hands on deck. All cities and all counties people.
So the only time you're going to get the villages out of the village is for fire.
If there's a car accident, they won't come.
No.
Unless it's in the village, they may come.
But we go to them.
It'd be reciprocal.
Do we go to them now?
There's nothing out there about them now. They're not even over there. Their closest stations are cold.
Okay, you see what I'm asking? Yeah. I was just saying, do we help them? They don't help us. That's all I was asking.
So the answer is no on both sides.
I think we have a lot of needs coming up, and I know Al, only in addition to you mentioned the college fund, but the big one that I think we're going to have, and it's going to be like this because it's not a one-time fee. If we're talking about spending $170,000 once, that would be very easy. But it's in every year and it grows every year. Is the homeless issue? You know, if you've been following it, we're going to get hit up by the county to contribute every year, and but to me, while I don't like spending the money, I think it's absolutely something we really need to do, because that is probably the single thing I get the most complaints on is a homeless shelter. And then we're talking about a teen center, and that's going to have additional staffing, operating costs. And then it's just like all these things that we're having I just don't think that
Can we respond
increasing.
to the county when they come to us for homeless the way they respond to us when we ask?
Well, they're leading it this time. I've been very critical of them, but if they're really going to take the lead this time and donate the piece of property that's not in Leesburg,
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah.
it's not in Leesburg, and then they want us to help kick in on operating somewhere, and we have a place we can take people that need services that's not in Leesburg, then, I mean, my opinion would change.
Well, it would be more beneficial to Leesburg at that point.
Right.
Rather than have everybody shifted to Leesburg because we do have something.
Yeah, and that seems to be that's where the conversation is going from everything I've seen on about the same thing.
Agreed.
Same thing. So.
As to the fire department, could we add 1 or 2 versus 3? I mean, every little bit helps.
It's 3 shifts. 1 firefighter, 3 shifts, A, B, and C, 24 hours a day, 365.
Okay.
Well, I guess we need to give them some direction as to where to go. Let's see.
How long have we been operating like this? Short.
2015.
So this was something that got cut.
We put together in 2015, which I think was my first budget year, we put together the sustainability plan that brought us to, say, I think that about 2018, 2019. So it was a projection to bring us down from fire expenses, don't hold me to these numbers, from about 6.2 to 5.8. And that's about right where we're at.
That was before fire assessment though, right?
No, we read the fire assessment into that.
We went from
I'm pretty sure.
We went from 6.02 to 4.85.
And then worked it back.
But we haven't seen an increase in service calls. They've been flat for 3 years. I mean, the report I get every month says it's flat.
The increase started in 15 when we took on the ISBA. We went from about 7,500, 8,000 calls a year, and we're pushing about 15,000.
Right, but since we've been staffed at this level, it's been flat. We haven't seen an increase this year versus last
We've
year.
been staffed at this level since 2015. The calls have doubled since 15.
The last 3 years, they've been the same.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my point, is that they've been the same.
Run about 15,000 calls a year for the last 3 years. With mutual aid, we run about 69% of them. Those numbers have been pretty standard for the past 3 years.
And that's what it would take for me. If I saw that number start increasing, then I think I could get on board, but until I see a change.
Well, personally, I think when we came with the fire sustainability plan, I think we decreased our levels. Firefighters, we reduced them. In fact, 2016 plus 2017, our regular salaries was about 2.5 million. Now 2019, so I guess for me, the $160,000, you know, where's that coming from? Is that coming from new money? Is that
169?
Yes.
New growth in your general revenues.
In general revenue, okay.
And the other option we have is to go through the budget and then decide our list of priorities,
right,
this being one of them, and where we want to spend it. Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about making choices of
right,
all the things that we want, this being one of them. What do we want?
And that's kind of what we did last year. We went to the end of the budget. Mike wasn't here, but we just said, these are the top 10 things. So now what do we want? What do we really want? Do we want 3 firefighters? Do we want chief to get 20 more thousand? Do we want this? And then we kind of, at the end of the day, we kind of ran through and said, okay, these are the top 5 we can really do this year. And that may be something we wait to the end of the budget and just say, okay, what's the highest priority?
My suggestion may be then on Tuesday night, we'll list them out for you.
Is it okay
Sounds
with
good.
that?
I'm fine with that.
You okay with that, man?
Yeah, that's fine. And we're looking at the police chief's compensation. I just throw it out there. Is our fire chief paid competitive with everybody?
I don't know the answer to that.
I
would say if we're going to go down the road, then you need to look at all the
if we're going to look, if we're going to look at the,
I mean, that, you know, with all due respect, I mean, that's what you have me for. You know,
I'm just saying, if we're going
is to make sure your department heads are paid appropriately and keep them happy. I think for the most part, probably with the exception of the electric director, I've done that. That was a little bit tongue in cheek. But in any case, you know, I think it's difficult when the commission says, hey, we need to pay this department head more, and then we don't address anybody else. I'm left to manage that issue. You hire me to provide you recommendations for the pay and where employees need to be at. Frankly, when you guys start dipping into it, it makes it difficult. If you want me to address all the department heads, I will. If you want me to address the chief singularly, I will. My recommendation to you is what we put in the budget and to move as in the budget. But I'll take your direction. Because you just grappled with the issue that I grapple with when I bring a budget to you.
Okay.
And it's better to do that at my level. That's part of the council manager form of government.
Okay.
And if you don't like how I'm paying the employees, then I would appreciate a tap on the shoulder, some direction. But I think when we talk about it in a budget position, like we did last year with building, like we did this year with fire, and Frank, I brought that to the table, but essentially what would have happened is if I put in the city manager recommendation, I'm sure we would have been asking Chief Johnson what he asked for and what he didn't get, and then you would have put him in the position to say, yeah, Mentor didn't give me what I wanted, and we would have been right back into the position that we just discussed. So I felt like I did the professional thing by bringing out where we do have differences. You guys get to judge me on an annual basis, but I think I handle my staff appropriately. I think I handle my staff professionally. I think I handle my staff differences in a good manner that's healthy, that provides healthy discussion and gives you insight on where you want to help us steer this organization. So with that, I will leave you with, I've been directed to provide you a list of wants, with how much money you have available in the general fund, which under our proposal is about $374,000 with about 5 or 6 different things. I think we've got a couple more things to go through. Public Works.
So how are we leaving that after that dialogue? Where are we at? Because I didn't mean to surprise you, and that wasn't my intention. When we hired Chief Hicks, we were not accredited. He was a new chief. He's had his regular COLA, and I don't know, and I said that earlier, I wasn't trying to open up a can of worms by any means, which I get it. I did. Thanks, Mike. But I do.
I'm the new guy. I just don't know any better.
I mean, and I'm not trying to say anything against any department head here, but we all know we have one department that exposes us to the highest level of exposure and liability and risk that there is, and that's your police department who's making split decisions. So I still stand by mine. I don't want to break down every department right now. I think we did that a couple years ago, and most of these guys have been in their department for a long time and are where they need to be. But we hired a new chief who had never been a chief, and we paid him according to an agency that was struggling, had not as many officers, was not accredited, and I personally still think that his pay should be looked at. So that's me. That takes 3. So that's just where I'm at with it.
I apologize for making a big deal about it. I guess all I would leave it at is, Al, I trust you to pay them all competitively.
No apologies.
No, but I mean, I just want to be sure. I think we have a good team, so I'll be sure they're all paid competitively.
There's a list of about 5 things that need to come back to you. I will have the chiefs pay as one of them. Any questions on streets? It's essentially the same. There's a little bit of a decrease in there. I think that's probably from shifting those employees around.
No, that's the.
It's not. The street light decrease.
Oh, so that's the utilities, is the street light payments. Okay.
Facilities. Any questions there?
Yeah. There's a huge drop in repair and maintenance for buildings and non-buildings. What's the?
We shifted some of that money from building maintenance up to the contract services.
Yeah.
The couple of contracts that we had in building maintenance, we moved them up to contract services.
Okay.
Any questions on grounds? Just simply, no major changes there?
I guess the contract service for grounds is some of the new median?
That's primarily the new medians.
Okay. Is that includes the future landscaping of Dixie or future maintenance?
Dixie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we estimated the price.
Yeah. We still think 2020, or are we off to 2021?
Good.
That's Public Works Administration.
Can you go back to 118 Public Ground Maintenance Division? So like the forfeit, that's for the contract for mowing the medians, you said, right?
The 450, yes, sir.
And we're gonna hire another ground maintenance lead.
I think you already did.
No, not
No.
yet. No, there is a request for an additional person in grounds.
Okay. And even with the contract, we still need that additional person?
Yes, sir. We're adding quite a bit of work right now down at the community building.
Okay.
We're still raising the standard of what we're doing to, for the other properties still. So there's a lot going on still.
And I just want to make sure that we all aware that, other departments are still adding staff as well. So it's not like we got one department that's adding. As the city grows, this is part of what we have to do is add staff. So, I don't want to think, we just got one department that's adding staff. We got a community building, so we're adding another staff. So even with a contract of $200,000 to cut the grass, we're still adding another person. So, it's just not like we're flat. We're still adding staff, we're moving staff around, we're taking staff, taking the recreation. So, so make sure that we're all aware that the city is growing. Hopefully, the ad valorem of the new development down in 27 will help, catch up. Hopefully, it won't take 3 years, but we'll get some new commercial development that will help add some funds to the general fund and help pay for these new positions.
I think we got their community development. No, that's down a tick, so no major things in planning and zoning. Housing remains the same. Libraries.
I had a question about the library. What page is that out?
137 to 141.
And I may just be totally misunderstood, but I was under the impression that that Beacon College, what is Beacon College's involvement? We just asked that question.
They run the cafeteria.
That's it?
That's it.
How do we have 32 employees to run a library?
Is that full and part-time too?
Yes.
Yeah, 19 full and
3 part-time.
part. We added a couple last year when we redid the hours. If you want a breakdown of how we staff that, I can get it for you, but I can't answer that for you now.
If you could bring me a little breakdown, just trying to understand how we have 19 people at a library, because maybe I haven't been to the library in a long time. I thought you checked out a book and read it.
Well, we're working 7 days there, right?
6.
Six for how many hours? How many hours do you work?
How many hours do we open now?
Yeah. 62. So let me get you a staff breakdown of how we break that down.
Okay.
And then I think we have recreation impact fees. And that's programs. So recreation programs. So that's your baseball, football, soccer, swimming, lessons.
So what's the new position, not the transfers?
Maintenance worker 1 for the tournaments. A dedicated person over at Sleepy Hollow.
And we have gotten revenue to cover that, increase in revenue.
Okay, great.
Are we doing any like marketing, Travis? Any marketing for the Sleepy Hollow tournaments?
We are at a point where we can't add any more.
You can't add any more?
It's
Wow.
jam-packed, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, we take a little 2-week break to do some maintenance, and then we have 15 out of the next 16 weekends are rented. So
Wow.
it's
And I think that's something we should be marketing, let people know we got a Class A sports complex. We have tournaments booked for the whole year. And I know what Dan will say, maybe they're too low. We need to raise them high, but book for the
I figure it's kids. I can't be too. So maybe just a 5%.
But yeah, just because I didn't know we booked the whole year. I think that'd be something we can, put in the flyer on the website. Lakefront TV can just market that our Sleepy Hollow, which we had to close down a few years ago, is now up and booming because people they say all kind of negative things, but they don't get the chance to see that. Then we got Class A baseball tournaments that's going on, all year long. One of our sports complex.
We do a monthly thing with Lakefront TV. We'll just have one next spot.
I seen you in there. They said chill and tell me you came in there. Thank you, Trav.
And then Marina is about the same.
We're gonna raise the rates again in the Marina.
We would not recommend a Marina rate increase. We felt they were marketable there. But let's talk about that because
full.
What is our number?
The dry slips, we've actually lost some after we implemented the extra size fee.
Yeah.
So we're down to probably 90%, 85 to 90% there right now. Wet slips we're still pretty full. We'll lose 1 or 2 every month, but we fill them right back in.
Yeah.
We're wet.
But you think and the wet slip rates, are those competitive or?
Yeah.
Are they at the high end of competitive?
They actually were after last year. And I don't have the comparative rates. I didn't do that for this budget this year. But last year we were in the top third of the area, and we really tried to do the chain of lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were getting up there.
Okay. Yeah.
We adjusted them just in the last 6 or 9 months, right?
Last
budget. Yeah. So 9 months ago, yeah. I think when the community building's open, you're probably gonna have to adjust them again.
And recreational impact fees, and that rounds out the general fund for your initial overview.
Swing one, I like it.
So on Thursday, we'll start with a little bit of a recap here with what we've got left, with some of the ones that we've identified, and get your priorities, and then we'll move into capital projects. And just, as far as the 4.2 million, we thought we put together, and obviously we'll review that tomorrow night, or Thursday night rather, but we thought we put together a list of what we've talked about, things that we've envisioned, like the teen center. So here's your $4.2 million number. How that breaks down is teen center 1.5, Venetian Gardens phase 4, which is marina and building improvements, at 1.25, and 1.5 a little bit additional pool money, which will give you about a $3.5 million pool construction budget. So that's the 4.2 million, and most of that's all coming from your cash or fiber money.
And I just want to say in closing, I do appreciate you bringing different options, even if it was for the fire department and caused some controversy. I think that the best thing that we could do as taxpayers, personally, if it was me that had the big broom, Lake County would be the city of Lake County. We'd have one police department, one fire department, one electric department, one commission, instead of 68 of us in the county, and we would just run. But that's not what we do. We all have our hands in it, and we have 14 city managers, and here we are. So I do appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate you at least presenting it to us so we can fight about it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else for tonight?
No.
Thank you to our department heads and staff for being here and listening to us talk. Thank you, city manager and the budget preparation team, and to the commission. God bless you. Have a good night.
So we'll see you Thursday.